Billionaire CEO gave a lift to a woman with a dirty dress. She was the runaway bride of a Mafia boss. Billionaire CEO gave a lift to a woman with a dirty dress. She was the runaway bride of a Mafia boss. The late afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the empty stretch of road, its heat amplifying the suffocating panic in Mia's chest. Her once pristine wedding dress, now torn and soiled, dragged heavily behind her as she stumbled forward. Each step sent jolts of pain through her bare feet, the delicate skin scraped raw from running across rough terrain. Her lungs burned with every desperate breath. The taste of copper lingered in her mouth, whether from her split lip or sheer exhaustion, she couldn't tell. Dust from the road clung to her tear-streaked face, mixing with mascara that had long since lost its perfect application. "Keep moving," she whispered to herself, her voice hoarse. "Don't stop. Can't stop." The bruises on her arms throbbed where Lorenzo's men had grabbed her, their fingers leaving dark impressions that would serve as temporary reminders of her narrow escape. She could still hear the shouts echoing in her mind, the sound of breaking glass when she'd thrown that precious Ming vase as a distraction. The guards never expected the quiet, obedient bride-to-be to fight back with such ferocity. Mia's legs trembled with each step. The adrenaline that had carried her through the initial escape was fading fast, leaving behind bone-deep exhaustion. She tried to focus on the horizon, but her vision swam, the heat waves rising from the asphalt, creating dizzying mirages. A sob caught in her throat as she remembered her mother's face just hours ago, watching helplessly as Lorenzo's men had dragged Mia toward that mockery of a wedding ceremony. "I'm sorry, Mama," she whispered to the empty air. "I couldn't do it. I couldn't become his wife." The weight of her ruined dress felt like chains dragging her down. With trembling fingers, she tore at the delicate lace, ripping away pieces that had once cost more than most people's monthly salary. Each tear felt like a small victory, a rejection of the golden cage Lorenzo had tried to trap her in. Her ankle twisted on a loose stone, sending her stumbling. She caught herself against the guardrail, the hot metal burning her palms. The pain barely registered among her other hurts. Mia's gaze darted behind her, scanning the empty road for any sign of pursuit. Lorenzo wouldn't let her go easily. She knew too much, had seen too much during her months of captivity in his mansion. The sun's glare reflected off something in the distance, making her squint. For a terrifying moment, she thought it might be one of Lorenzo's men's vehicles, but the road remained empty. She forced herself to keep moving, though each step became harder than the last. Sweat trickled down her back, making the torn dress cling uncomfortably to her skin. The beautiful updo that had taken hours to perfect this morning had completely fallen apart, leaving her dark hair hanging in tangled waves around her face. She used it as a curtain, trying to hide the evidence of Lorenzo's anger, the bruise blooming along her cheekbone where he'd struck her upon discovering her attempt to escape. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and she swayed dangerously. The edges of her vision began to darken. "Please," she prayed to whoever might be listening, "please let me get far enough away. Don't let them find me." The sound of an approaching engine made her heart stutter. Panic surged through her veins, giving her a fresh burst of energy. But her legs wouldn't cooperate. They felt like lead weights, refusing to run despite her desperate need to flee. The purr of a well-tuned engine grew closer. Through her blurred vision, she made out the sleek shape of a black luxury car slowing beside her. The tinted window rolled down smoothly, revealing a shadowed interior. A man's voice, deep and steady, called out to her. Unlike Lorenzo's cold, calculating tone, this voice held genuine concern. "Do you need help?" Ryan Blackwood had driven this stretch of road countless times, but never had he encountered someone quite like this. He stepped out of his Mercedes, his tall frame casting a long shadow in the late afternoon sun. His designer suit, perfectly tailored to his athletic build, stood in stark contrast to the disheveled woman before him. "Miss?" He kept his voice gentle, noting how she flinched at his movement. Her white dress, clearly once elegant, was now torn and dirty, telling a story he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "I'm Ryan. Let me help you." Mia took an instinctive step backward, her eyes darting to the empty road behind her. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her body had nothing left to give. This stranger's presence set off warning bells. His expensive car and perfectly pressed suit reminded her too much of Lorenzo's world. "I'm not going to hurt you," Ryan said, maintaining his distance. He could see the bruise on her cheek, poorly hidden by her tangled hair, and something protective stirred in his chest. "You look like you could use a ride and maybe some water." He reached back into his car, movements slow and deliberate, and pulled out an unopened bottle of water. The sight of the water made Mia's throat constrict. She hadn't realized how thirsty she was until that moment. Her cracked lips parted, but no words came out. "Here," Ryan said, holding out the bottle. He didn't move closer, letting her make the choice. "Take it. No strings attached." Mia's hand trembled as she reached for the water. She unscrewed the cap with shaking fingers and took a careful sip. The cool liquid was heaven against her parched throat. "Thank you," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan nodded, studying her with concerned brown eyes. "Listen, I know you don't know me, but you clearly need help. I can take you to the police, or a hospital if you prefer." Mia's eyes widened in panic. "No, no police." She hugged herself tightly, the water bottle crinkling in her grip. "They can't help me." Understanding dawned in Ryan's eyes. Whatever trouble this woman was in, it was serious enough that traditional channels weren't an option. He'd seen that same look of desperate fear in the eyes of people who'd crossed paths with organized crime. "Okay," he said softly. "No police, but you can't stay out here. Let me at least drive you somewhere safe." Mia glanced at his car, its tinted windows offering anonymity, its powerful engine promising escape. She looked back at Ryan, really looking at him this time. His stance was open, non-threatening. His eyes held concern, but no malice. Most importantly, he hadn't tried to grab her or force her into anything. She swallowed hard. "I don't have anywhere to go." Ryan's expression softened. "I have a private estate outside the city. Gated, secure. You can stay there until you figure things out." He saw her hesitation and added, "Separate guest house, full privacy. You'll be safe." Mia's mind raced. Every lesson she'd learned about trust had been painfully earned. But what choice did she have? Her body was giving out, and Lorenzo's men would eventually find her if she stayed on foot. "Why would you help me?" she asked, needing to understand. Ryan's answer was simple and honest. "Because someone needs to, and I can." Something in his straightforward response resonated with Mia. After months of navigating Lorenzo's world of lies and manipulation, this stranger's directness was refreshing. She took a shaky breath and nodded. "Okay." Ryan opened the passenger door for her, but didn't crowd her space. Mia slid into the leather seat, her ruined dress catching on the doorframe. The cool air conditioning hit her face, and she had to fight back tears of relief. As Ryan got in and started the engine, Mia clutched her water bottle like a lifeline. The car pulled away smoothly, leaving behind the dusty road where her desperate flight had led her to this moment of uncertain sanctuary. The iron gates swung open silently as Ryan's car approached his estate. Mia pressed herself deeper into the leather seat, taking in the manicured lawns and perfectly trimmed hedges. The driveway curved gracefully toward a modern mansion that seemed to be made entirely of glass and steel, its clean lines gleaming in the fading daylight. "Home sweet home," Ryan said softly, parking under a covered entrance. He glanced at Mia, noting how she tensed at the sight of the uniformed staff member approaching. "It's okay. That's just Marcus, my house manager. He's trustworthy." Mia nodded stiffly, but said nothing. The mansion before her was beautiful, but it stirred uncomfortable memories of Lorenzo's estate. Different style, same wealth, same power. Ryan led her through giant double doors into a foyer with soaring ceilings and minimalist decor. Their footsteps echoed on the marble floors as they passed abstract paintings and sculpture installations that probably cost more than most people made in a year. Everything was pristine, perfect, and completely impersonal. "The guest wing is this way," Ryan said, guiding her down a corridor. "You'll have complete privacy there." Mia followed, hyper-aware of the dirt she was tracking on the immaculate floors. Her torn dress felt even more ragged, surrounded by such perfection. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to make herself smaller. The guest room was larger than her entire apartment had been. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a peaceful garden, and the king-sized bed looked soft enough to sink into. But like the rest of the house, it felt more like a hotel suite than a home. "The bathroom's through there," Ryan gestured to a door. "I'll have some clothes brought up for you. Is there anything specific you need?" Mia shook her head, overwhelmed by the situation. Just hours ago, she'd been running for her life. Now she stood in a billionaire's guest room, covered in dirt and wearing a ruined wedding dress. "I'll give you some time to clean up," Ryan said gently. "Dinner will be ready in about an hour if you feel up to joining me. No pressure, though. I can have something sent up here if you prefer." After Ryan left, Mia stood frozen in the middle of the room. The silence felt heavy, broken only by the soft hum of the air conditioning. Everything was too clean, too perfect. She caught her reflection in a full-length mirror and barely recognized herself. Hair tangled, makeup smeared, dress torn and filthy. The bathroom was all marble and chrome, with multiple shower heads and enough toiletries to stock a small store. Mia peeled off her ruined dress, wincing at the bruises that marked her skin. The hot water felt like heaven, washing away the dirt and sweat of her escape. When she emerged, wrapped in the softest towel she'd ever felt, she found clothes laid out on the bed, simple cotton pants, a sweater, and undergarments that somehow fit perfectly. There were even soft slippers waiting by the bed. Later, sitting across from Ryan at a dining table that could seat 20, Mia struggled to keep her hands from shaking as she picked at the expertly prepared meal before her. The silverware was heavy, probably real silver, and the china was delicate enough to see through when held up to the light. Ryan ate quietly, not pressing her to talk, but she could feel his concerned glances. The food was delicious, some kind of pasta dish that probably had a fancy French name, but her stomach was too knotted to enjoy it. Every shadow made her jump. Every small noise from the staff made her heart race. The rational part of her mind knew she was safer here than anywhere else, but trauma doesn't listen to reason. Lorenzo had seemed kind at first, too, showing her a world of luxury and privilege before revealing the monster beneath the polished exterior. She wanted to trust Ryan's kindness, wanted to believe that not everyone with money and power was like Lorenzo. But as she sat in this beautiful, sterile mansion that felt more like a museum than a home, the weight of her past pressed down on her like a physical thing. She was a stranger here, in more ways than one. The scalding water cascaded over Mia's shoulders, washing away the dirt and grime from her desperate escape. Steam filled the massive shower, creating a cocoon of warmth that made her feel safe for the first time in hours. She pressed her forehead against the cool marble wall, letting out a shaky breath as the events of the day crashed over her like waves. Her wedding dress lay in a heap on the bathroom floor, once pristine white, now stained with mud and torn at the hem. She'd been wearing it for less than 2 hours before everything fell apart. The bruises on her arms were already darkening, evidence of the guards' rough hands as they'd tried to stop her from running. Mia watched the water swirl down the drain, carrying away traces of mascara and the elaborate updo that had taken hours to perfect. Her mother had been so proud, fussing over every detail, blind to the horror she was sending her daughter into. Or maybe not blind, maybe just too afraid to speak up. The thought brought fresh tears to her eyes, mixing with the shower spray. She'd known, of course, what kind of man Lorenzo was. Everyone knew. But knowing and experiencing were two different things. The casual cruelty in his eyes when he'd gripped her arm during the ceremony, the whispered threats about what would happen if she embarrassed him, it had been too much. When she finally stepped out of the shower, the bathroom mirror was completely fogged over. Mia wiped a section clean with her hand, studying her reflection. The face that stared back seemed both familiar and strange. The scared little girl who'd agreed to an arranged marriage was gone, replaced by someone harder, more desperate. The clothes Ryan had provided fit well enough. Soft gray sweatpants and a loose sweater that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe back home. She dried her hair with a plush towel, grateful for its length, which helped hide the bruises on her neck. Downstairs, she found Ryan in what appeared to be a living room, though it was larger than most houses. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens, now dark in the evening light. He'd changed into more casual clothes as well, though on him, they still somehow looked expensive and tailored. "Feeling better?" he asked, gesturing to the couch across from him. A tea service sat on the coffee table between them, steam rising from a delicate porcelain pot. Mia nodded, sinking into the soft leather. Her muscles ached from running, from tension, from fear. Ryan poured her a cup of tea, adding honey when she requested it. The familiar ritual helped calm her nerves. "Thank you," she said softly, warming her hands on the cup. "For everything. I know you must have questions." "Only what you're comfortable sharing," Ryan replied, his voice gentle but firm. He seemed to understand instinctively that pushing too hard would make her retreat. Mia took a long sip of tea, gathering her thoughts. The words came slowly at first, then faster, like a dam breaking. She told him about her family's financial troubles, how they'd been approached with an offer they couldn't refuse. A powerful man, a marriage arrangement that would solve all their problems. Her parents had been ecstatic, their daughter marrying into such influence and wealth. "They didn't know," she whispered, staring into her tea, "or they didn't want to know. Everyone whispered about his connections, his business dealings, but nobody dared say it outright. He was careful about that, keeping his public image clean while—" She trailed off, hands trembling slightly. Ryan remained silent, patient, his presence oddly comforting despite being a stranger. Perhaps it was because he was so different from Lorenzo, where her ex-fiancé radiated cold control. Ryan emanated warmth and genuine concern. "The wedding was today," she continued. "Everything was perfect, just like he demanded. Perfect flowers, perfect dress, perfect bride." Her laugh was hollow. "But during the ceremony, I saw something in his eyes, something that made me realize I couldn't go through with it. So I ran. His men tried to stop me, but I managed to get away. I just ran until I couldn't anymore. And then you found me." She carefully avoided mentioning Lorenzo's name or any specific details about his organization. The less Ryan knew, the safer he would be. but it felt good to share even this much, to have someone listen without judgment or fear. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ryan's mansion, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Mia stood in the guest room, folding the borrowed clothes she'd slept in. She'd already changed back into her dress from yesterday. Though still dirty, it was better than continuing to take advantage of Ryan's generosity. Ready to head out? Ryan's voice came from the doorway. He was dressed in a crisp charcoal suit that probably cost more than a car. I know a place where we can grab breakfast before I take you wherever you need to go. Mia nodded, grateful but guarded. You've already done too much. Nonsense, Ryan said, leading her to his car. Everyone deserves help sometimes. The diner he chose was a small, unassuming place tucked between two larger buildings. Despite Ryan's obvious wealth, he seemed completely at ease sliding into the worn vinyl booth. The waitress, an older woman with kind eyes, brought them coffee without asking. Best pancakes in the city, Ryan said, scanning the menu. And private enough that you won't have to worry about being seen. Mia wrapped her hands around the warm coffee mug, studying Ryan over its rim. You seem experienced at helping people lay low. Let's just say I understand the need for discretion in certain situations. He ordered for both of them when the waitress returned, then turned his attention back to Mia. Do you have somewhere safe to go? Before she could answer, Ryan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it apologetically. I need to take this. Business never sleeps, unfortunately. Excuse me for a moment. He stepped away from the booth, but remained within Mia's sight, standing near the diner's front window. She couldn't help but notice how he commanded attention even in this humble setting, his tall frame and confident posture drawing glances from other patrons. The waitress brought their food, golden pancakes dripping with syrup for Ryan, and a simple eggs and toast for Mia. She was about to take her first bite when Ryan's voice carried across the quiet diner. Yes, the Lorenzo project is proceeding as planned. The initial investment has already been transferred. Mia's fork clattered against her plate. Lorenzo. Her stomach churned as she heard more snippets of the conversation. The development in the Harbor District. Yes, that's correct. Mr. Lorenzo assured me personally that all permits are in order. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Ryan's company was working with Lorenzo, the same man she'd fled from yesterday, the one whose bruises still marked her skin. She felt sick, remembering Lorenzo's boasts about his legitimate business partners, how they helped him wash his blood money clean. Ryan returned to the table, still focused on his phone as he scrolled through what looked like financial documents. Sorry about that. Where were we? But Mia barely heard him. All she could think about was Lorenzo's smirking face as he'd explained his empire to her during their engagement. How he used legitimate businesses to hide his illegal operations. How he corrupted everything he touched. And now here she was, sitting across from one of his business partners. Had this all been a setup? Had Ryan recognized her? Was he going to report back to Lorenzo? The pancakes that had smelled so delicious moments ago now made her want to gag. She watched Ryan eat, trying to reconcile the kind man who'd helped her with someone who would do business with a monster like Lorenzo. He caught her staring and smiled, completely unaware of her inner turmoil. Everything okay? You've barely touched your food. Mia forced herself to pick up her fork, though each bite tasted like ash. She needed to stay calm, to pretend everything was fine, until she could figure out her next move. One thing was certain. She couldn't trust Ryan anymore, no matter how genuine his kindness had seemed. Scene 3. Mia's hands trembled as she set down her fork, unable to maintain the pretense any longer. The diner's cheerful atmosphere felt suffocating now, the clinking of cutlery and murmured conversations grating against her frayed nerves. You work with Antonio Lorenzo? Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the effect on Ryan was immediate. His fork paused halfway to his mouth, confusion creasing his brow. The harbor development project? Yes. Lorenzo Enterprises is one of our investment partners. Why? Mia's chest tightened. She leaned forward, keeping her voice low but intense. Do you have any idea what kind of man he really is? Ryan set his fork down carefully, studying her face. What are you saying, Mia? Lorenzo. He's the one I ran from. The words felt like glass in her throat. The Mafia boss I was supposed to marry. Your business partner is the man who... She gestured to the fading bruises on her arms. The color drained from Ryan's face. He pushed his plate away, looking suddenly ill. That's not possible. We vetted Lorenzo Enterprises thoroughly. The company passed every background check. Of course it did, Mia said bitterly. That's how he operates. Clean businesses on paper, dirty money underneath. He bragged about it to me, how he used legitimate companies to launder his blood money. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, his composure cracking. Jesus Christ. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying over the screen. I need to make some calls, get our legal team. No. Mia grabbed his wrist, her grip tight with panic. No calls. Lorenzo has people everywhere. If he finds out I'm here... Ryan gently covered her hand with his. Mia, look at me. I would never let him hurt you. But I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. She withdrew her hand, wrapping her arms around herself. Your company provides legitimate cover for his operations. The harbor development, it's perfect for smuggling. The construction sites launder money. Every legitimate business deal helps him grow stronger. Ryan's jaw clenched as he listened, his expression darkening with each word. I've been played, he said quietly. My whole company has been used to facilitate criminal activities. He looked at her, his eyes filled with determination. I'm shutting it down. All of it. Every project, every investment connected to Lorenzo Enterprises. It's not that simple, Mia warned. Lorenzo doesn't let go easily. When deals go bad... She shuddered, remembering overheard conversations about business partners who'd disappeared. I don't care about the consequences, Ryan said firmly. I built my company on honest work and clean money. I won't let it be used as a front for organized crime. He paused, his expression softening. And I won't let him hurt you again. Mia wanted to believe him. The sincerity in his voice, the righteous anger in his eyes, it all seemed genuine. But she'd learned the hard way that appearances could be deceiving. How can I trust you? She asked. How do I know this isn't all part of his plan? Because I'm going to prove it to you. Ryan pulled out his phone again. Right now I'm going to call my CFO and freeze all transactions with Lorenzo Enterprises. Then I'm contacting our lawyers to begin the process of severing all ties. He made the call right there, putting it on speaker so Mia could hear. She listened as he gave clear, decisive orders to halt all business dealings with Lorenzo's companies, her tension easing slightly with each command he issued. When he hung up, he looked at her seriously. That's just the start. I'll need your help to understand the full scope of his operations. Together we can shut down his money laundering channels. Mia nodded slowly, relief warring with lingering doubt. Ryan seemed sincere in his shock and his desire to make things right. But Lorenzo's shadow loomed large, and trust was still a luxury she couldn't fully afford. Thank you, she said quietly. But please understand, I need to be careful. I've learned the hard way that people aren't always what they seem. I understand, Ryan replied, and I'll prove to you that you can trust me, no matter how long it takes. Mia sat in Ryan's home office, surrounded by dark mahogany shelves and leather-bound books. The afternoon sun streamed through tall windows, warming her skin as she helped Ryan sort through old business records. They'd been working together for days, trying to untangle his company's connections to Lorenzo. "These files go back decades," Ryan muttered, passing her another stack of folders. "My father kept everything." Mia flipped through the documents, her eyes scanning dates and names. She'd gotten used to working alongside Ryan, finding comfort in their shared mission to expose Lorenzo's criminal network. But something caught her eye, a familiar name that made her blood run cold. "Valencia Industries," she whispered, her fingers trembling as she traced the letterhead. Ryan looked up from his desk. "What about it?" "This was my family's company." Mia's voice cracked, before everything fell apart. Ryan moved closer, peering at the document. "I remember that name. My father handled their acquisition about 8 years ago." "Acquisition?" Mia's head snapped up. "There was no acquisition. Lorenzo forced my father to sell everything. He destroyed us." She dug deeper into the file, her heart pounding as she uncovered more papers. Contracts, agreements, evidence of a calculated takedown orchestrated by 2 men, Lorenzo and Richard Kane, Ryan's father. "This can't be right," she muttered, but the proof was there in black and white. "Your father, he worked with Lorenzo to bankrupt my family?" Ryan reached for the papers, his face pale. "Let me see that." Mia watched as he read, his expression growing more troubled with each page. The room felt suddenly airless, the walls closing in around her. "They planned it together," she said, her voice hollow. "Your father helped Lorenzo target my family's businesses. They systematically bought out our suppliers, canceled our contracts, cut off our credit lines." Her hands clenched into fists. "Do you know what happened after that? My father had a breakdown. My mother became ill from stress, and Mia," Ryan started, reaching for her hand. She jerked away from his touch. "I was forced into an engagement with Lorenzo to save what was left of my family, all because your father helped him destroy everything we had." Ryan's face was ashen. "I had no idea. I knew my father made some questionable decisions, but this... Questionable?" Mia laughed bitterly. "He ruined lives. My family lost everything, our business, our home, our dignity, and now here I am, in his house, with his son." She stood up abruptly, knocking over a stack of files. Papers scattered across the floor, but she barely noticed. The walls of family photos seemed to mock her now. Generations of Kanes, including Richard Kane's stern portrait watching her from above the fireplace. "I trusted you," she whispered, backing away from Ryan. "I actually started to believe you were different." "I am different," Ryan insisted, rising from his chair. "I'm not my father, Mia. Everything I've done to help you has been genuine." But Mia could barely hear him over the roaring in her ears. The pieces were falling into place, her family's sudden downfall, Lorenzo's rise to power, the arranged marriage. It had all started here, in this house, with Ryan's father. "Don't follow me," she choked out, turning toward the door. "Please, just don't." She ran through the hallways, past the expensive artwork and crystal chandeliers, all paid for with money earned through deals like the one that destroyed her family. Her vision blurred with tears as she reached the guest room, slamming the door behind her and turning the lock. Mia slid down against the door, her whole body shaking. She could hear Ryan's footsteps in the hallway, his gentle knock on the door, but she pressed her hands over her ears. The safe haven she'd found with him now felt like a cruel joke. She was sleeping in the house of the man who had helped orchestrate her family's destruction. Through the door, she heard Ryan's muffled voice. "Mia, please, let me explain." But she couldn't face him. Not now. Not when every memory of their growing closeness was tainted by this new revelation. She hugged her knees to her chest, trying to steady her breathing as tears streamed down her face. The knock on Mia's door came hours later, soft and hesitant. She sat curled in the window seat, watching shadows stretch across Ryan's manicured lawn as evening settled in. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying. "Mia?" Ryan's voice was gentle. "I brought you some tea." She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. Part of her wanted to ignore him, to hold on to the anger that felt safer than the confusion in her heart. But she was tired of running. "It's unlocked," she said quietly. The door opened slowly. Ryan stepped in, carrying a delicate china teacup on a silver tray. His usual confident demeanor was gone, replaced by something more vulnerable. He set the tray on the small table beside her. "It's chamomile," he said. "I remember you mentioned it helps you sleep." Mia's throat tightened at the thoughtful gesture. She reached for the cup, letting its warmth seep into her cold fingers. "I spent the last few hours going through every file," Ryan said, keeping his distance. "I wanted to understand exactly what happened." He ran a hand through his hair, disheveled from hours of research. "What my father did to your family, it was wrong. Inexcusably wrong." Mia took a sip of tea, letting the warm liquid soothe her raw throat. "Your father and Lorenzo worked together for years. They planned it all." "Yes." Ryan's voice was heavy with shame. "My father saw your family's business as competition. Instead of competing fairly, he chose to eliminate the threat. He used Lorenzo's connections to do it." He moved closer, but still maintained a respectful distance. "I can't change what he did, Mia, but I want you to know that I'm nothing like him." She studied his face in the fading light. The sincerity in his eyes made her heart ache. "How can I be sure?" "Because everything I've built on my own terms. When I took over the company after his death, I spent years undoing his unethical practices. I've tried to be different." He sat down in a chair across from her. "But finding out about this, it feels like his shadow will never stop haunting me." Mia watched the steam rise from her tea. "I understand shadows," she said softly. "My whole life has been lived in them." "I know it doesn't change anything," Ryan continued, "but I want to make this right, whatever it takes. I'll help restore your family's business, provide whatever resources you need." "It's not about the money, Ryan." Mia set down her cup. "It's about trust. My family trusted the wrong people, and we lost everything. I trusted Lorenzo, and he tried to trap me in a nightmare. And now you're wondering if you can trust me," Ryan finished. She nodded, fighting back fresh tears. "The worst part is, I was starting to. Really starting to." Ryan leaned forward, his eyes intense. "That trust wasn't misplaced, Mia. Everything between us has been real. My father's sins are not mine." The conviction in his voice stirred something in her chest. She thought about the past few days, how he'd offered her sanctuary without question, how he'd listened to her story without judgment, how he'd immediately vowed to help her fight Lorenzo. "I want to believe you," she whispered. "Then let me prove it to you. Stay here, where it's safe. Let me help you bring Lorenzo down and restore what was taken from your family." He stood up, moving towards the door. "But I understand if you need space. I won't push." Mia wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the weight of the decision. Her family's pain ran deep, but so did her growing feelings for Ryan. Could she separate the son from the father's sins? "I'll stay," she said finally. "But I need time, Ryan. I can't just pretend this doesn't change things between us." He nodded, accepting her terms. "I understand. Thank you for giving me a chance to make things right." As he turned to leave, Mia felt the walls around her heart shift slightly. They were still there, still protecting her, but maybe they didn't need to be quite so high. The morning sun streamed through the study's windows as Ryan pored over financial documents, his laptop screen flickering with spreadsheets and transaction records. Mia sat across from him, her legs tucked beneath her in the leather armchair, watching him work. "Another shell company," Ryan muttered, making notes. "Lorenzo's got his fingers in everything." He rubbed his tired eyes, reaching for his coffee cup. "He always bragged about being untouchable," Mia said, her voice quiet but steady. "The way he structured his businesses, it was like a maze." Ryan looked up at her, noting how the sunlight caught the gold in her hair. Even after everything, she carried herself with quiet strength. "Tell me more about how he operated. Anything could help." Mia shifted in her chair, wrapping her cardigan tighter around herself. "He liked to keep things compartmentalized. Different lieutenants handled different aspects of the business, but none of them knew the full picture." She paused, remembering. "There was this one time, at a dinner party, he was bragging about how even his accountants couldn't trace everything." "That's actually helpful," Ryan said, typing quickly. "If we can identify the separate pieces." "We might be able to see where they connect," Mia finished, moving closer to look at his screen. Their shoulders brushed, and neither pulled away. The contact was small but significant, a tiny crack in the wall between them. "You're good at this," Ryan observed, watching her scan the numbers. "Business analytics, I mean." Mia smiled slightly. "I used to help my father with our family business, before—" She trailed off, but then straightened her shoulders. "I studied business in college. That's actually where I met Lorenzo. He seemed so charming then, talking about modernizing his family's import business." "What did you want to do, before everything changed?" The question caught her off guard. It had been so long since anyone had asked about her dreams. "I wanted to restart my father's business. Not the whole thing, but the part that meant something. The small vineyards we helped, the local farmers we supported." Ryan turned to face her fully, his work momentarily forgotten. "Tell me more." "It wasn't just about making money," Mia continued, her eyes brightening with passion. "We created relationships with these families, helped them preserve traditional methods while adapting to modern markets. When Lorenzo's schemes destroyed us, those families lost their support system." "We could help them," Ryan said softly. "Set up a new network, provide resources." "We?" Mia asked, her heart skipping. "Sorry, I didn't mean to presume," Ryan backtracked, but Mia shook her head. "No, it's nice, having someone understand." She stood up, walking to the window. "I've spent so long just trying to survive, I almost forgot what it was like to dream about the future." Ryan followed her to the window, keeping a respectful distance. "What else do you dream about?" Mia was quiet for a long moment, watching the gardens below. "Freedom," she finally said, "not just from Lorenzo, but from fear. I want to wake up in the morning and not look over my shoulder. I want to help people without wondering if it'll be used against me." She turned to face him. "I want to trust again." The vulnerability in her voice made Ryan's chest tighten. "You will," he promised. "We'll make it happen." They stood there, the morning sun warming them as Mia continued to share pieces of herself. She told him about the small house she'd always wanted, with a garden full of herbs and flowers. She described the community outreach programs she'd planned before Lorenzo had taken everything away. Ryan listened, each word drawing him deeper into her world. He saw the passion behind her quiet exterior, the dreams that had survived despite everything that had tried to crush them. As she spoke, he found himself imagining how he could help make those dreams reality, how he could be part of the future she envisioned. The distance between them seemed to shrink with each shared story, each quiet laugh, each moment of understanding. Their shadows, his father's legacy, her traumatic past, still lingered, but they no longer seemed insurmountable. The morning started like any other at Ryan's estate, until his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Mia watched from across the breakfast table as Ryan's expression darkened with each message. "Turn on the news," he said, reaching for the remote. The TV flickered to life, and there it was, splashed across the bottom of the screen. Breaking: Kingston Enterprises linked to organized crime. Ryan's company logo filled the screen as reporters discussed anonymous sources and criminal enterprises. Mia's hands trembled around her coffee cup. "Lorenzo," she whispered. Ryan's jaw clenched as he watched the coverage. Photos of his company's buildings flashed across the screen, interspersed with generic shots of police cars and crime scene tape. The reporters were careful not to name names, but the implications were clear. "Mr. Kingston, our shareholders are demanding answers." His assistant's voice crackled through the speakerphone. "The board wants an emergency meeting in an hour." "Set it up in the conference room," Ryan replied, his voice steady despite the chaos. "And Sarah, get our PR team ready." Mia stood up, gathering the breakfast dishes. "This is my fault. I should leave before—" "No." Ryan caught her wrist gently. "This isn't your fault. Lorenzo's trying to scare us, trying to isolate you again. I won't let that happen." His phone buzzed again. This time the message made his face pale. He turned the screen so Mia could see. "Back off or watch everything burn. You don't know what you're dealing with, Kingston." The message was accompanied by detailed financial records of Ryan's company's most sensitive dealings. "He's going to destroy everything you've built," Mia said, her voice breaking. "Just like he did to my family." Ryan stood up, straightening his tie. "No, he won't, because this time, we're fighting back." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Ryan's mansion transformed into a crisis center, with lawyers and PR specialists filling the rooms. Mia stayed in the background, watching as Ryan handled each challenge with determined focus. "Our stock is down 30%, one executive reported. "Investors are panicking." "3 major clients have already called to suspend their contracts," another added. Ryan stood at the head of the conference table, his presence commanding attention. "We've done nothing wrong. Every contract, every deal has been legitimate. Lorenzo's trying to create chaos by mixing truth with lies." Another message arrived, this one more direct. "Your father knew when to look the other way, Kingston. Last warning." Mia, who had been quietly observing from the corner, felt her chest tighten. The mention of Ryan's father brought back memories of her own family's downfall. She slipped out of the room, needing air. Ryan found her in the garden minutes later. "You okay?" "He won't stop," she said, staring at the roses. "Lorenzo, he enjoys destroying people. It's not just business for him, it's personal satisfaction." "I know." Ryan's voice was grim. "But that's his weakness too. He's so focused on revenge that he's getting sloppy. Those financial records he sent, they're going to help us trace his network." Mia turned to face him. "He'll come after you harder. Your reputation, your business, maybe even—" "Let him try." Ryan's eyes were steel. "I've spent years building this company on honest work. I won't let him use my father's mistakes to destroy what I've created." He took Mia's hands in his. "And I won't let him hurt you again." Another alert sounded on Ryan's phone. Photos from the company's private servers, each one strategically selected to look suspicious out of context. The message below read, "Tick-tock." "He's trying to force my hand," Ryan said, his voice low and dangerous. "He thinks if he threatens enough people, exposes enough secrets, I'll back down." He looked at Mia, his expression softening slightly. "But he doesn't understand. This isn't just about business anymore." "What are you going to do?" Mia asked. Ryan's phone lit up with more threats, more exposed secrets, but instead of fear, his expression showed determination. "I'm going to fight, not just for my company, but for every person he's ever hurt, for your family, for the people who trusted us." He squeezed her hand. And most importantly, for you. Mia stood at the window of her guest room, watching the sun set behind Ryan's manicured gardens. Her reflection stared back at her, a different woman from the one who'd stumbled onto this estate in a torn wedding dress. Her bruises had faded, but the emotional scars ran deeper. She traced her finger along the cool glass, remembering her family's old home. Before Ryan's father and Lorenzo had taken everything, they'd lived in a modest but beautiful house filled with her mother's cooking and her father's laughter. Now her parents lived in a tiny apartment, working endless hours to survive. "Why does my heart betray me like this?" she whispered to her reflection. Every time Ryan smiled at her, brought her tea, or asked about her day, something warm bloomed in her chest. He showed her kindness without expecting anything in return. But then she'd remember his father's signature on the documents that destroyed her family's business, the partnership that gave Lorenzo power over them. Mia walked to the dresser where she kept the few possessions she'd managed to grab during her escape. Hidden in a sock was a crumpled photograph, her family standing proud outside their restaurant on opening day. Her father's arm was around her mother, both beaming with pride. That same week, Ryan's father had called in their loans, forcing them to sell to Lorenzo at a fraction of its worth. She sank onto the bed, clutching the photo. Ryan wasn't his father. She'd seen that in how he handled the crisis with his company, choosing integrity over profit. He'd offered her protection without knowing her story, shown her respect when she was at her most vulnerable. But the anger still burned. Someone needed to answer for her family's suffering. Mia paced the room, her emotions warring inside her. Ryan had been nothing but honest with her since discovering his company's connection to Lorenzo. He'd immediately moved to sever those ties, regardless of the cost. When he looked at her, she saw genuine care in his eyes. "He's not his father," she said aloud, testing how the words felt. "But he benefited from what his father did." The memory of this morning's breakfast came back to her, Ryan's gentle touch on her wrist, his fierce protection when Lorenzo threatened them. He'd stood like a shield between her and danger, never once suggesting she leave to save his company's reputation. But questions gnawed at her. How much did Ryan know about his father's dealings? Had he ever questioned where their wealth came from? Did he understand the real cost of his privileged life? Mia walked to her closet, running her hands over the clothes Ryan had bought her. Simple, elegant pieces, chosen with care but not flashy. He'd respected her dignity, even in this. But these clothes, this room, this entire mansion, it was all built on the ruins of families like hers. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. "Hope you're okay. Let me know if you need anything." Such a simple message, but it made her heart ache. She could picture him in his office, probably still dealing with the fallout from Lorenzo's threats, yet taking time to check on her. "Enough," Mia said firmly. She couldn't move forward, couldn't trust these feelings growing between them until she knew the truth. She opened her door, determination straightening her spine. The mansion's hallways were quiet now, most of the crisis team gone for the day. Light spilled from under Ryan's office door, and she could hear him talking softly on the phone. Mia waited, her heart pounding. When his call ended, she took a deep breath. The questions that had haunted her since discovering his father's involvement demanded answers. She needed to know if Ryan was truly different, or if he was just better at hiding his true nature. She raised her hand and knocked on his door. The evening air was cool against Mia's skin as she followed Ryan through his estate's gardens. Japanese maples lined the stone path, their leaves rustling softly in the breeze. Ryan walked beside her, keeping a respectful distance while staying close enough to offer comfort. "I know nothing I say can erase what my father did," Ryan said, his voice low and steady. "But I want you to understand that I'm not him. I've spent years trying to build something different, something better." Mia wrapped her arms around herself, studying the perfectly manicured flower beds. Everything here spoke of wealth, the kind of wealth her family had lost. "Your father and Lorenzo, they worked together for years. How could you not know?" Ryan stopped near a stone bench, running a hand through his dark hair. "I was young when most of it happened. By the time I took over the company, my father had already passed away. I've been finding secrets, shell companies, hidden partnerships." He shook his head. "Every time I think I've cleaned it all up, something else surfaces." "Like your connection to Lorenzo," Mia said quietly. "Yes." Ryan's jaw tightened. "I should have dug deeper, looked harder at where that money was coming from. I failed there, and I'm sorry." They walked past a fountain, its gentle splashing filling the silence between them. Mia watched the water catch the last rays of sunlight, thinking of all the tears her mother had shed when they lost everything. "My mother used to garden," she said suddenly. "Nothing fancy like this, just vegetables and herbs for the restaurant. When we lost it all, she couldn't even keep a windowsill plant alive. She said her heart wasn't in it anymore." Ryan's face softened with genuine pain. "I can't imagine how hard that must have been for your family. I know it doesn't mean much, but I want to make it right. Whatever it takes." "How?" Mia asked, stopping to face him. "You can't give us back those years. You can't erase the shame my father felt, working as a dishwasher in someone else's kitchen." "No, I can't," Ryan admitted, "but I can help you take Lorenzo down. I can make sure he never hurts another family like yours. And—" he hesitated, then continued, "I can try to restore what was taken, if you'll let me." Mia studied his face in the fading light. There was no trace of his father's cruel business tactics in his earnest expression, no hint of Lorenzo's calculating charm, just honest determination and something else, something that made her heart beat faster. "I've been going through old records," Ryan continued, leading her past a row of rose bushes, "documenting everything I can find about my father's dealings with Lorenzo. It's not just your family, there are dozens of others. If we can expose this, we can stop him." His words stirred something in Mia, a spark of hope she'd thought long dead. But fear quickly followed. "Lorenzo is dangerous. He won't just let you expose him." "I know," Ryan said quietly. "That's why I've been careful, building a case slowly, gathering evidence. I have people I trust working on this, people who can't be bought." They reached a small Japanese garden, complete with a wooden bridge over a koi pond. Ryan stopped, turning to face her fully. "Mia, I know you have every reason not to trust me. My family's wealth, this estate, it was built partly on your family's suffering. I can't change that. But I can choose what to do with it now. Let me help you fight back." Mia looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of deception. She found only sincerity and determination. Her heart wanted to believe him, to trust in this man who'd shown her nothing but kindness since finding her on that lonely road. But her mind remembered the crushing weight of betrayal, the years of watching her parents struggle while others profited from their loss. "I want to believe you," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the evening breeze. "But I'm scared, Ryan. Scared of being wrong about you, scared of hoping again." The evening settled over Ryan's estate like a heavy blanket, bringing with it an unsettling quiet. Mia stood at the kitchen window, absently stirring her tea as she watched the security guards make their rounds. After their conversation in the garden, she felt oddly lighter, as if sharing her burden with Ryan had somehow made it more bearable. The kitchen was warm and bright, a stark contrast to the growing darkness outside. She lifted the cup to her lips, inhaling the calming scent of chamomile. That's when she noticed it, the slight movement in the shadows near the hedges, too deliberate to be the wind. Her heart stuttered. The security guard who should have been patrolling that area was nowhere in sight. The back door's handle turned slowly, silently. Mia's muscles tensed, her fingers tightening around the hot cup. Years of living in fear had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now, every nerve in her body screamed danger. The door burst open. A man in dark clothes lunged forward, his face partially concealed by a black mask. Mia hurled the scalding tea at his face and turned to run, but he was faster, his arm locked around her waist, lifting her off her feet. "Lorenzo sends his regards," he growled in her ear, his breath hot against her skin. "Did you really think you could hide forever?" Mia fought like a wild thing, kicking and twisting in his grip. Her elbow connected with his ribs, earning a grunt of pain, but his hold only tightened. The world tilted as he started dragging her toward the door. "Ryan!" she screamed, her voice echoing through the house. "Ryan!" the attacker cursed, trying to clamp a hand over her mouth. Mia bit down hard, tasting blood. He swore violently, releasing her face to strike her across the cheek. The blow sent her reeling, but she kept fighting. Thundering footsteps approached from the hallway. Ryan appeared in the doorway, his face transforming from concern to fury in an instant. He launched himself at the attacker, tackling him away from Mia. She stumbled free, gasping for air as the two men crashed into the kitchen island. The fight was brutal and quick. Ryan might have grown up privileged, but he clearly knew how to handle himself. His fists connected with precision, each blow calculated. The attacker fought back vicely, landing a solid hit to Ryan's jaw that made Mia cry out in alarm. But Ryan didn't falter. He drove his knee into the man's stomach, following with an uppercut that sent the attacker sprawling. The man's head cracked against the marble countertop, and he slumped to the floor, unconscious. "Mia!" Ryan was at her side in an instant, his hands gentle as they framed her face. "Are you hurt? Did he—" "I'm okay," she managed, though her whole body was shaking. "The guards—" "Already called security," Ryan assured her, pulling her close. His heart hammered against her cheek. "They're checking the grounds. Someone must have disabled the perimeter alarms." Mia clutched at his shirt, the reality of what had just happened hitting her full force. He said, "Lorenzo sent him. He found me, Ryan. He's not going to stop." Ryan's arms tightened around her. "I won't let him touch you," he promised, his voice fierce. "We'll increase security, change protocols. I'll hire the best—" "No," Mia pulled back, meeting his eyes. "You don't understand. Lorenzo doesn't give up, ever. He'll keep coming, keep sending people. Anyone around me is in danger." Her voice broke. "You're in danger." "I don't care," Ryan said firmly. "Let him come. We'll face him together." But Mia could see the bruise forming on his jaw, could still feel the attacker's cruel grip on her body. The weight of their situation pressed down on her like a physical thing. This wasn't just about her anymore. By helping her, Ryan had made himself a target. His company, his life, everything he'd worked for. It was all at risk now. She looked around the kitchen, at the signs of struggle, the spilled tea, the unconscious man on the floor. This beautiful home that had become her sanctuary was now compromised. The danger she'd tried to escape had followed her here, threatening not just her, but the man who'd shown her kindness when she needed it most. Mia stood at the window of her room, watching the enhanced security team patrol the grounds. 3 days had passed since the attack, and Ryan had transformed his estate into a fortress. New cameras, motion sensors, and armed guards created an illusion of safety. But Mia knew better. She'd seen Lorenzo's reach firsthand. Her fingers traced the fading bruise on her cheek, a reminder of how close they'd come to disaster. The image of Ryan fighting her attacker kept replaying in her mind, the way he'd thrown himself into danger without hesitation, the blood on his knuckles, the dark bruise that still marked his jaw. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Mia?" Ryan's voice carried through the door. "Can I come in?" She hesitated, then crossed the room to let him in. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes betraying sleepless nights spent reinforcing security and dealing with business fallout. The sight made her chest ache with guilt. "You missed breakfast again," he said softly, concern etched on his face. "I wasn't hungry?" Mia turned away, unable to meet his gaze. She'd been avoiding common areas, taking meals in her room, speaking only when necessary. Distance felt safer, for both of them. "This isn't sustainable, Mia." Ryan's voice was gentle but firm. "You can't hide forever." "I'm not hiding," she protested weakly. "I'm being practical. The more I'm around you, the more danger you're in. Your company's stock has dropped 15% since the attack. Your board members are questioning your judgment, all because of me." "Stop." Ryan moved closer, though he didn't touch her. He'd learned to read her body language, to respect her need for space. "None of this is your fault. Lorenzo is the one responsible, not you." Mia wrapped her arms around herself, fighting back tears. "You could have died, Ryan. He sent that man to take me, but if you'd been killed trying to protect me..." Her voice cracked. "I couldn't live with that." "Look at me," Ryan requested. When she didn't move, he stepped into her line of sight. "I made my choice the moment I stopped to help you on that road. I knew something was wrong, that you were running from something serious. I chose to help then, and I'm choosing to help now." "Why?" Mia finally met his eyes, searching for answers. "Why risk everything for someone you barely know?" Ryan's expression softened. "Because in the short time I've known you, you've shown me more strength, courage, and genuine goodness than most people I've known my entire life. Because watching you fight to rebuild yourself, to trust again despite everything you've been through, it's inspired me to be better, to fight harder for what's right." His words hit her like a physical force, breaking through the walls she'd been carefully constructing. "I can't ask you to sacrifice your life for me." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Ryan took a deep breath, then continued. "But I understand if it's too much. If you want to leave, to try and disappear somewhere else, I won't stop you. I can arrange transportation, new identity documents, whatever you need to start fresh." Mia stared at him, stunned by the offer. The thought of leaving made her heart constrict painfully. But wasn't it the right thing to do? Wouldn't everyone be safer if she just disappeared? "Or," Ryan continued, his voice low and intense, "you can stay, fight back with me. Lorenzo isn't invincible, no one is. Together we might have a chance to end this, to free you from his shadow permanently." The choice hung between them, heavy with possibility and danger. Mia felt tears sliding down her cheeks as she wrestled with the decision. Running meant safety, but also loneliness, always looking over her shoulder. Staying meant risk, but also hope, connection, and maybe something more, something she'd started to feel growing between them despite her best efforts to keep her heart guarded. "I need time," she whispered, her voice trembling. I need to think." Ryan nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. Whatever you decide, know that you're not alone anymore, Mia. Not unless you want to be." Mia stood at the window of Ryan's study, watching rain streak down the glass. The storm outside matched her turbulent thoughts, but for the first time in days, clarity was beginning to emerge from the chaos. She turned to face Ryan, who sat quietly at his desk, giving her the space she needed to think. "I'm staying," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. Ryan looked up, hope and concern warring in his expression. "Are you sure?" "No," Mia admitted, wrapping her arms around herself. I'm terrified. But I'm more afraid of spending the rest of my life running, always looking over my shoulder, wondering when Lorenzo will find me. She took a deep breath. I want my life back. Ryan stood slowly, his movements careful, as if approaching a spooked animal. We'll need a solid plan. Lorenzo's organization is deeply embedded in legitimate businesses. It won't be easy to expose them. I know his operation better than anyone, Mia said, moving to sit in one of the leather chairs facing Ryan's desk. I was supposed to be his wife. He liked to brag about his empire, especially when he'd been drinking. Ryan's jaw tightened at the mention of Lorenzo, but he kept his voice steady. Tell me everything you remember. Mia closed her eyes, forcing herself to recall details she'd tried to forget. He has shipping companies, legitimate ones on paper, but they're used to move drugs and weapons. The main company is called Mediterranean Ventures. Ryan grabbed his laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard. Mediterranean Ventures. Yes, they're one of our smaller contractors. We use them for some European shipments. His expression darkened. Used them. Not anymore. There's more, Mia continued, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. He has construction companies that launder money, real estate holdings where he runs gambling operations, even a chain of restaurants that... She broke off, swallowing hard. That traffic young women. Ryan's hands clenched into fists on his desk. We'll need proof. Documents, witnesses, financial records. I know where he keeps his records, Mia said quietly. In his office at the mansion, there's a safe behind his grandfather's portrait. He showed it to me once. Drunk and boasting about how clever he was, hiding everything in plain sight. That's helpful, but we can't break into his mansion, Ryan said, running a hand through his hair. We need to be smarter than that. What about his business partners? Mia suggested. The legitimate ones. They must keep records of their dealings with him. Ryan's eyes lit up. Yes, and I have connections in most major corporations. People who owe me favors, who might be willing to help if they understood what was at stake. He started making notes on his laptop. We'll need to be careful, though. One wrong move and Lorenzo will know what we're doing. Mia stood and began pacing, energy coursing through her veins. His restaurant chain, Bella Vista. The manager at the downtown location, Maria, she hates what happens there. She might help us if we can guarantee her safety. I can arrange protection, Ryan said. I have connections in law enforcement, people I trust completely. You'd risk all that? Mia stopped pacing to look at him. Your reputation, your company, your safety? Ryan met her gaze steadily. Some things are worth the risk. This isn't just about you anymore, Mia. It's about all the people Lorenzo hurts. It's about making things right. Mia felt warmth spread through her chest, mixing with the fear and determination. Where do we start? First, we document everything you know. Names, dates, locations. Ryan pulled out a legal pad. Then we start gathering evidence, carefully. We'll need a secure way to store information, encrypted servers, offline backups. Lorenzo has people everywhere, Mia warned. We can't trust anyone completely. We'll be careful, Ryan assured her. I have resources he doesn't know about, ways to move without being noticed. He paused, looking at her intently. Are you absolutely sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. Mia straightened her shoulders, lifting her chin. I've spent too long being afraid. It's time to fight back. She moved to sit across from him again, reaching for the legal pad. Let me tell you about Lorenzo's shipping routes first. That's where he's most vulnerable. They bent their heads together over the desk, beginning the painstaking work of documenting Lorenzo's criminal empire. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside, a different kind of storm was brewing, one of determination, justice, and the quiet strength of two people refusing to let evil win. Ryan's office felt smaller as papers and documents scattered across his desk, each one a piece of the puzzle they were trying to solve. The soft glow of his laptop screen cast shadows on his face as he clicked through old company files. Mia sat across from him, making notes about Lorenzo's operations. "Wait." Ryan's voice cracked. He stared at his screen, color draining from his face. "This can't be right." Mia looked up from her notepad. "What is it?" "These transactions—" His fingers trembled as he scrolled through the document. "They're from my father's personal accounts, not the company's. Regular payments to shell companies I've never heard of, all leading back to Lorenzo's organization." Mia set down her pen, moving to stand behind Ryan. The numbers on the screen told a story neither of them wanted to read. "Monthly payments, spanning years," Ryan continued, his voice hollow. "And look at the dates. They started right around the time your family's business collapsed." The air felt thick with tension. Mia's hands gripped the back of Ryan's chair, her knuckles white. "Your father, he wasn't just doing business with Lorenzo?" "No." Ryan pushed back from the desk, running his hands through his hair. "He was funding him, actively supporting him. These aren't normal business transactions. They're too irregular, too carefully hidden." He stood up abruptly, pacing the room. "My father wasn't just caught up in Lorenzo's web. He helped build it." Mia sank into a nearby chair, her mind racing. All those years of pain, of watching her family struggle after their business crumbled, of being forced into an engagement with Lorenzo. It all traced back to Ryan's father. "The timing of your family's downfall," Ryan said, stopping by the window. "It wasn't just bad luck or market forces. My father, he must have helped Lorenzo target your family specifically." Tears welled in Mia's eyes, but she blinked them back. "Why? Why would he do that?" "Control," Ryan said bitterly. "My father always needed to control everything. By helping Lorenzo destroy your family's business, he probably gained more power in the industry. And Lorenzo—" He turned to face Mia, his expression pained. "Lorenzo got what he wanted. You." The revelation hung heavy between them. Mia felt the weight of years of suffering pressing down on her chest. All this time she'd blamed Lorenzo, but Ryan's father had been the puppet master behind it all. Ryan knelt before her chair, his eyes pleading. "Mia, I swear I didn't know. If I had—" "I know," she said softly, reaching out to touch his cheek. "You're not your father, Ryan." He leaned into her touch, closing his eyes. "How can you even look at me? My father orchestrated everything that hurt you. He's the reason you ended up engaged to Lorenzo, the reason your family lost everything." Mia was quiet for a moment, sorting through her tangled emotions. Yes, the revelation hurt. Yes, part of her wanted to run from anything connected to the man who'd helped destroy her life. But Ryan wasn't his father. "The sins of the father aren't the sins of the son," she said finally. "You're trying to make things right. You're fighting against everything your father built." "But his legacy," Ryan started. "Is yours to reshape," Mia interrupted. "You can't change what he did, but you can choose what you do now. And you've chosen to help me, to fight Lorenzo, to expose the truth, even when it hurts." Ryan looked up at her, vulnerability plain on his face. "How do I live with this knowledge? How do I make up for what he did?" "By being better," Mia said firmly. "By being the man you are, not the man he was. You're not defined by his choices, Ryan. You're defined by your own." The pain in Ryan's eyes mingled with determination. His father's legacy cast a long shadow, but Mia's words offered a path forward. Not through denial or escape, but through conscious choice to be different, to do better. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of Ryan's study as maps and documents covered every surface. Mia stood before a large whiteboard, marking key locations with different colored markers. Her hands moved with purpose, no longer shaking when she wrote Lorenzo's name. "The FBI's ready to move on our signal," Ryan said, hanging up his phone. He approached the whiteboard, standing close enough that Mia could feel his warmth. "They've verified all the evidence we gathered. The money trails, the trafficking routes, everything." Mia capped the marker, studying their work. "It still feels surreal. After everything—" She touched the photo of Lorenzo's main compound. "To think we might actually bring him down." Ryan's hand found the small of her back, steady and reassuring. "We will. The case is solid. Once we expose the connection between his legitimate businesses and his criminal empire, he won't be able to hide anymore." Mia leaned into his touch, allowing herself to draw strength from his presence. These past weeks had changed everything. What started as a desperate escape had transformed into something bigger, a chance to free not just herself, but countless others from Lorenzo's grip. "Walk me through the plan again," she said, needing to hear it one more time. Ryan nodded, moving to the center of the room. "Tomorrow morning, Lorenzo thinks he's attending a shareholders' meeting at my company. He'll bring his usual security detail, but they'll have to check their weapons at the door, company policy. And the FBI will be waiting? Disguised as security personnel and office workers. The moment Lorenzo enters the conference room, they'll move in." Ryan's jaw tightened. "We'll have teams simultaneously raiding his properties, using the evidence we gathered to secure warrants." Mia crossed her arms, fighting back old fears. What if he suspects something? What if— "Hey." Ryan stepped closer, gently turning her to face him. "Look at me. We've thought of everything. The FBI has been building this case for months with our help. Lorenzo's arrogance is his weakness. He still thinks he's untouchable." She met his eyes, finding strength in their steady gaze. Ryan had proven himself over and over, standing by her through every revelation, every setback. Even learning about his father's role in her family's destruction hadn't broken him. It had only strengthened his resolve to make things right. "I need to tell you something," Mia said softly. She moved to the window, gathering her thoughts. "When I first got in your car that day, I was terrified. Not just of Lorenzo finding me, but of trusting anyone ever again." Ryan remained silent, giving her space to continue. "Then I discovered your company's connection to Lorenzo and your father's involvement in my family's downfall." She turned back to face him. "I wanted to hate you. It would have been easier." "I wouldn't have blamed you," Ryan said quietly. "But I couldn't." Mia stepped closer to him. "Because every day you showed me what real strength looks like. Not through power or control, but through kindness, through choosing to do what's right, even when it costs you everything." Ryan's eyes softened with emotion. "Mia, let me finish." She took his hand, feeling its warmth against her palm. "I've been holding back, afraid to fully trust, afraid to believe in anything good. But standing here now, planning to finally bring Lorenzo to justice, I'm not afraid anymore." The morning light caught the tears in her eyes, making them shine. "I trust you, Ryan. Completely. And that terrified me at first, but now—" She smiled, a real, full smile that reached her eyes. "Now it feels like the most natural thing in the world." Ryan pulled her into his arms, holding her close. Mia relaxed into his embrace, feeling truly safe for the first time in years. Tomorrow they would face Lorenzo. But in this moment, she allowed herself to feel something she'd thought was lost forever. Hope. The hope wasn't just for justice or freedom from fear. It was hope for a future she could barely imagine before, one filled with love, trust, and the possibility of happiness. As she stood in Ryan's arms, surrounded by their plans to take down the Mafia, Mia knew she had finally found what she'd been searching for, someone worth believing in. The conference room felt too bright, too sterile for what was about to unfold. Mia's hands trembled slightly as she straightened the papers before her, each document another nail in Lorenzo's coffin. Ryan sat beside her, his presence steady and grounding. They'd rehearsed this moment countless times, but now that it was here, her heart thundered against her ribs. "He's here," Ryan murmured, glancing at his phone. The security feed showed Lorenzo striding through the lobby, flanked by 2 guards. His confident smirk hadn't changed. He still carried himself like a king among peasants. Mia took a deep breath, smoothing her blazer. "I can do this." "You don't have to be here," Ryan reminded her softly. "The FBI can handle—" "I need to see this through." Her voice was stronger than she felt. "He needs to know he didn't break me." The door opened, and Lorenzo swept in like he owned the place. His expensive suit couldn't hide the predator beneath, and his smile froze when he saw Mia sitting at the conference table. "What is this?" he demanded, dark eyes narrowing. His guards moved forward, but Ryan's security team, actually FBI agents, blocked their path. "Please, sit down," Ryan said coolly. "We have some business to discuss." Lorenzo's laugh was sharp and cold. "Business? With my runaway bride?" He focused on Mia, his gaze making her skin crawl. "I've missed you, cara Mia. You've caused quite a bit of trouble." "The trouble's just beginning," Mia replied, proud that her voice didn't waver. She pushed a folder across the table. "We know everything, Lorenzo. The trafficking, the money laundering, all of it." "Careful, Piccola." Lorenzo's voice dropped dangerously. "You're playing a game you don't understand." Ryan leaned forward. "We understand perfectly. Your entire operation is exposed. We have proof of every illegal transaction, every shell company, every bribe." Lorenzo's facade cracked slightly. "You think some paperwork can touch me? I own this city." "Not anymore." Mia opened the folder, revealing photographs, bank statements, and sworn testimonies. "Your lieutenant talked, Lorenzo. Marco gave us everything." The color drained from Lorenzo's face. His hands clenched into fists as he scanned the documents. "Marco would never—" "He did," Ryan interrupted, "along with several others. They're tired of living under your thumb. It's over." Lorenzo lunged across the table, reaching for Mia's throat. Ryan moved instantly, shoving her chair back as FBI agents swarmed the room. Lorenzo's guards drew weapons, but they were quickly overwhelmed. "You ungrateful bitch!" Lorenzo snarled as agents forced him down. "After everything I gave you." "You gave me nothing but fear and pain," Mia shot back, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "And now you're going to lose everything, just like you made my family lose everything." Lorenzo fought against the handcuffs, his carefully maintained image crumbling into rage. "Your father begged me to take you. He knew you were worthless without my name, my protection. My father was desperate because of what Ryan's father and you did to our family." Mia stepped closer, finally facing her demon. "But I'm not that scared girl anymore. And you're not the powerful man you pretend to be." As the agents read Lorenzo his rights, he thrashed violently, managing to break free for a moment. He charged toward Mia, but Ryan intercepted him, landing a solid punch that sent the mob boss sprawling. "That's assault!" Lorenzo spat blood, struggling as agents subdued him again. "Self-defense," Ryan replied coldly. "There are plenty of witnesses." They watched as Lorenzo was dragged away, his threats and curses echoing through the hallway. The guards were led out in handcuffs, and FBI agents swarmed the room, collecting evidence and securing the scene. Mia's legs finally gave out, and she sank into a chair. Ryan knelt beside her, his hand warm on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" She nodded, tears of relief streaming down her face. "I can't believe it's really happening. After all this time?" An agent approached them, looking grim. "We need to get you both to a secure location. Some of his associates might—" A gunshot cracked through the air. Glass shattered as bullets sprayed the conference room. Sunlight streamed through the bulletproof windows of Ryan's office as he scrolled through the morning headlines. "Mafia Empire Crumbles. Crime Boss Lorenzo Castellano Arrested," read one. "Billionaire CEO Ryan Bennett aids FBI in major organized crime bust," declared another. Mia sat across from him, clutching a steaming cup of tea. The bruises from the shootout 3 weeks ago had faded, but she still moved carefully, mindful of her healing ribs. The attempt on their lives had failed. Lorenzo's men were now in custody alongside their boss. "My mother called again," Mia said softly. "They're finally moving back into our old house. The bank returned everything after the investigation proved the foreclosure was fraudulent." Ryan's face softened. "That's wonderful news. How are they settling in?" "Better than expected. Dad's still jumpy, checking the windows every hour, but Mom says he's sleeping through the night now." Mia's smile was genuine, if tired. "It's strange, seeing them without that weight of fear. Like meeting them for the first time all over again." A gentle knock interrupted them. Ryan's assistant entered with a stack of papers. "The latest numbers, sir. Stock prices are climbing steadily since the announcement of the new board appointments." "Thank you, Sarah." Ryan accepted the documents, scanning them quickly. "The company's recovery is exceeding expectations. Investors are responding well to our transparency about the situation." After Sarah left, Mia moved to stand by the window, looking out over the city. "Sometimes it feels surreal, like I'll wake up and be back in that mansion, trapped in that life." Ryan joined her, his presence steady and warm. "You're free now. We all are." "I got another letter from the prosecutor's office," Mia revealed. "They want me to testify at Lorenzo's trial. They say my statement could help bring down what's left of his network." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You don't have to do that. There's enough evidence without putting you through." "I want to," Mia interrupted firmly. "I need to face him one last time, on my terms. Show him that he has no power over me anymore." Pride flickered across Ryan's face. "You're the strongest person I know." A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched the city bustle below. The past month had been a whirlwind of federal investigations, press statements, and security measures. But now, finally, things were settling into a new normal. "The board meeting went well this morning," Ryan said after a while. "We've implemented all the new compliance measures, and the audit team is thoroughly vetting every partnership." Mia nodded. "Your father's old partners?" "Most resigned when the investigation started. The rest were asked to leave." Ryan's voice held no regret. "It's time for a fresh start, building something honest from the ground up." "Speaking of fresh starts," Mia turned to face him, "I've been thinking about what's next. For me, I mean." Ryan waited patiently as she gathered her thoughts. "I want to help other women like me," she continued. "Create a foundation or support network for those trying to escape dangerous situations. Use what we've learned to make a difference." "That's brilliant," Ryan's eyes lit up. "I can help with the legal framework, funding—" Mia laughed, the sound light and free. "Slow down. I'm still working out the details." They made their way through the mansion's halls, past artwork and antiques that no longer felt so intimidating to Mia. The estate had become a sanctuary rather than another gilded cage. Out on the terrace, the afternoon sun painted everything in warm, golden light. The garden below was beginning to bloom, new life pushing through the soil. Mia and Ryan sat together on a comfortable bench, shoulders touching. My mother asked about you, Mia said quietly. She wants you to come to dinner next week. Ryan looked surprised. Are you sure they're ready for that? They know you're not your father. They've seen how hard you've worked to make things right. Mia reached for his hand. They want to know the man who helped save their daughter. The weight of the past still lingered, but it no longer felt suffocating. Here, in the peaceful afternoon, they could finally breathe. The evening sun cast long shadows across Ryan's estate gardens as Mia walked among the roses. Her fingers brushed against the velvet petals, their sweet scent filling the air. 3 months had passed since Lorenzo's arrest, and each day brought small victories in her healing journey. Ryan appeared at the garden entrance, his tie loosened after a long day of meetings. I thought I'd find you here. Mia smiled, no longer startled by his presence. The roses help me think. They remind me that beautiful things can grow even after being cut back. He joined her, maintaining a respectful distance that had become their comfortable rhythm. How was your therapy session today? Good, actually. Mia sat on a stone bench, patting the space beside her. Dr. Carter says I'm making progress with my anxiety. The nightmares are less frequent now. Ryan settled next to her, his shoulder barely touching hers. I'm glad to hear that. You seem more at peace lately. I am. Mia drew a deep breath, inhaling the garden's calming scent. For the first time since escaping Lorenzo, I feel like I can imagine a future without fear shadowing every moment. They sat in comfortable silence, watching butterflies dance between blooms. The garden had become their sanctuary, a place where walls could come down and healing could happen naturally. I visited my parents today, Mia continued. Dad's finally stopped checking the security cameras every hour. Mom's even talking about hosting neighborhood barbecues again. She laughed softly. It's like watching flowers bloom after a long winter. Ryan's hand found hers, his touch gentle. Your strength amazes me, after everything you've been through. Our strength, Mia corrected, squeezing his hand. I wouldn't be here without you, Ryan. You showed me that not all men are like Lorenzo, or like your father. At the mention of his father, Ryan tensed slightly. Mia turned to face him, her eyes soft but determined. I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness, she said. Not just forgiving you for your father's actions, but forgiving myself for carrying that anger for so long. Mia, you don't have to. Please, let me finish. She took both his hands in hers. Your father's choices were his own, just like Lorenzo's choices were his. You've proven time and again that you're different. You chose to help me when I was nothing but a stranger in a dirty dress. You risked everything to protect me and my family. Tears glistened in her eyes, but her voice remained steady. The past few months have shown me who you truly are, Ryan. A man who fights for what's right, who works to correct injustice, who loves with his whole heart. Ryan's eyes were damp as he listened, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. I forgive you completely, Mia continued. Not because you need it, but because I need to say it. I choose to love you for who you are, not who your father was. Mia, Ryan's voice cracked with emotion, I promise to spend every day being worthy of that forgiveness, of your trust. She reached up to cup his cheek, wiping away a stray tear. You already are. Every time you hold me through a nightmare, every time you respect my boundaries, every time you show me what real love looks like, you prove it. The garden around them hummed with life, bees visiting late-blooming flowers, birds calling their evening songs, a gentle breeze rustling through leaves. It was a peaceful backdrop to this moment of healing and hope. I want to build something beautiful with you, Mia said softly. Something that honors our journey but isn't defined by it. Can we do that? Ryan pulled her closer, pressing his forehead to hers. Together, we can do anything. Mia settled into his embrace, feeling truly safe and loved. The shadows of the past were finally lifting, making way for a future bright with possibility. Morning sunlight streamed through the estate's windows as Mia stood in Ryan's study, watching him organize papers on his desk. The room no longer felt intimidating as it once had. Now it was just another space they shared, filled with warm memories of late-night conversations and quiet moments together. "I've been thinking," Ryan said, setting down his pen. "The guest house by the lake. What if we renovated it? Made it our own space?" Mia walked over to his desk, trailing her fingers along the polished wood. "Our own space?" "Something smaller, more intimate than the main house." He stood and walked to the window, pointing toward the tree-lined path that led to the lake. "It's private, peaceful, a perfect place to start fresh." The idea warmed Mia's heart. To build something that's just ours. Exactly. Ryan wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. No shadows of the past, no ghosts in the halls, just us. Mia leaned back against him, allowing herself to imagine it. "I'd like a garden," she said softly. "Something wild and free, not like these manicured lawns." "Whatever you want." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "We could plant wildflowers, maybe put in a vegetable patch." "Room for kids to play," Mia added, then froze, realizing what she'd said. Ryan turned her gently to face him. "Is that something you want? Children?" The fear that had once gripped her at such thoughts was noticeably absent. Instead, she felt hope blooming in her chest. "I used to be terrified of having children," she admitted. "The idea of bringing them into a world where the Mafia could hurt them. But now I can imagine it. Little ones running through that wild garden, climbing trees by the lake." She smiled up at him. "Being loved and protected, not controlled and feared." Ryan's eyes softened. "They'd have your strength. And your kindness." Mia reached up to touch his face. "Your moral compass." They stood there for a moment, both lost in the vision of their future. The sound of birds chirping outside mingled with the distant splash of the lake's waves. "We should tell my family," Mia said suddenly. "About our plans, about everything. They've been so worried about me for so long. It would mean the world to them to know I'm truly happy now." "Let's go today," Ryan suggested. "I'll clear my schedule." An hour later, they were driving through the familiar streets of Mia's childhood neighborhood. The houses looked brighter somehow, no longer carrying the weight of fear and surveillance that had marked them during the Mafia's reign. Mia's mother opened the door before they could knock, as if she'd been watching for them. "Sweetheart," she exclaimed, pulling Mia into a tight hug. Then, to Ryan's surprise, she hugged him too. Come in. I just made fresh coffee." Inside, Mia's father sat in his favorite armchair, a newspaper spread across his lap, not checking security cameras or scanning for threats, just enjoying a peaceful morning. He stood to greet them, his smile genuine. They gathered in the sunny kitchen, the same space where Mia had once received the devastating news of her arranged marriage to Lorenzo. Now it was filled with the aroma of coffee and fresh-baked cookies, with laughter and hope. "We have some news," Mia began, squeezing Ryan's hand under the table. She told them about the guest house, about their plans to make it their own. With each word, her parents' smiles grew wider. "And there's more," she continued, her voice soft but sure. "We're thinking about starting a family. Not right away, but—" She looked at her mother, whose eyes had filled with tears. "We want children who will grow up knowing only love and safety." Her father cleared his throat, clearly emotional. "That's all we ever wanted for you, sweetheart. To be safe, to be loved." Ryan spoke up, his voice earnest. "I promise you both, She'll always have that with me." Mia's mother reached across the table to grasp their joined hands. "We know, Ryan. We've seen how you look at her, how you respect her. That's all any parent could ask for." The kitchen filled with warm morning light, and Mia looked around at these people she loved. Her parents, finally at peace, and Ryan, her future bright and boundless beside him. The fear that had lived in her heart for so long had been replaced by something beautiful. Hope. Mia sat in her new office at Ryan's company headquarters, reviewing the latest compliance reports. The sleek desk, with its modern lines and pristine surface, still felt surreal sometimes. A year ago, she'd been running for her life. Now, she was helping reshape one of the city's largest corporations. "These numbers look good," she murmured, making another note. As head of ethics and compliance, a position Ryan had created specifically for her expertise, she took pride in ensuring the company stayed clean. A gentle knock drew her attention. Ryan stood in the doorway, his tie slightly loosened after a long day of meetings. "Ready for lunch?" "Just finishing up." She gestured to the stack of papers. "The new vetting process for business partners is working perfectly. No more hidden connections or suspicious transactions." Ryan crossed the room, resting his hands on her shoulders. "That's all thanks to you. Your insight has been invaluable." "Our insight," she corrected, covering his hand with hers. "You're the one who insisted on complete transparency, even when the board pushed back. They've come around." He smiled. "The stock price is up 15% since we implemented the new policies. Turns out, ethical business practices are good for the bottom line." Mia stood, gathering her things. "Speaking of ethical practices, I had an interesting meeting this morning with that women's shelter we've been supporting." They walked together toward the elevator, their steps in sync. "How did it go?" "They're thrilled with the job placement program. 3 more survivors found positions this month." Mia's voice softened. "It means everything to them, having a chance at independence." The elevator doors opened to the private garage. Ryan's driver waited with their car, but today Mia had other plans. "I thought we could walk to lunch," she suggested. "It's beautiful outside." Ryan smiled, dismissing the driver. They stepped out into the sunshine, and Mia breathed in deeply. The city felt different now. Safer, full of possibility rather than threat. "I've been thinking," she said as they walked, "about expanding the support programs. Not just job placement, but education grants, housing assistance. Really give people the tools to rebuild their lives." Ryan squeezed her hand. "Whatever resources you need, they're yours. The foundation's doing well, and this is exactly the kind of impact we should be making." They passed a small park, where office workers enjoyed their lunch breaks. Mia remembered running through parks like this, always looking over her shoulder. Now she could stop, admire the flowers, watch children play without fear tightening her chest. "Sometimes I can't believe how much has changed," she admitted. "The company, us, everything." "Good changes?" "The best." She turned to face him. "You know, when you first found me on that road, I thought I'd never trust anyone again, especially not someone with your kind of power and influence." Ryan's expression grew serious. "I remember how scared you were, how you flinched at every sudden movement. But you were patient. You listened. You didn't just try to fix everything. You gave me space to heal, to find my own strength again." They reached their favorite cafe, a small place with outdoor seating and excellent pasta. As they settled at their usual table, Mia continued, "And now look at us, partners in every sense, building something meaningful together." "We make a good team," Ryan agreed, his eyes warm with affection. The waiter brought their usual orders without needing to ask. Margarita pizza for her, grilled chicken salad for him. Mia watched the people passing by, no longer searching for threats in every shadow. "You know what makes me proudest?" she said, turning back to Ryan, that we're creating real change. Every policy we implement, every person we help, it's like we're slowly but surely making the world a little bit better. That's all you, Ryan insisted. You've transformed the company's entire approach to ethics. You've shown us how to use our resources for good. Mia shook her head, smiling. We did it together. That's what makes it work. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of the chapel, casting rainbow patterns across Mia's white gown. She stood in the bridal suite, her hands trembling slightly as her mother adjusted her veil. You look beautiful, sweetheart, her mother whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. Like an angel. Mia studied her reflection in the full-length mirror. The elegant lace dress hugged her curves before flowing into a modest train. Her dark hair was swept up in an intricate design, decorated with tiny pearl pins that caught the light. But it was her eyes that held her attention. Clear, bright, and unafraid. A gentle knock at the door announced her father's arrival. He paused in the doorway, his weathered face softening with emotion. It's time, Princess. Her bridesmaids gathered around, adjusting her train and handing her the bouquet of white roses and baby's breath. The familiar scent calmed her nerves. These weren't the roses from her previous engagement. Those had been blood red, a warning sign she'd ignored. These were pure, peaceful, like the love she shared with Ryan. The chapel's antechamber was cool and quiet. Through the heavy wooden doors, she could hear the murmur of guests and soft violin music. Her father took her arm, his steady presence grounding her. Remember when you found me that night, she whispered to him. When I finally escaped and made it home? He squeezed her arm. I remember being so grateful you were alive, and now look at you, strong, successful, happy. The wedding march began, and the doors swung open. Mia's heart skipped as she took in the scene before her. The chapel was filled with fresh flowers and twinkling lights, but her eyes went straight to Ryan, waiting for her at the altar. He stood tall and handsome in his black tuxedo, but it was his expression that made her breath catch. Pure love and admiration shone in his eyes as he watched her approach. This wasn't the possessive stare of her ex-fiancé. This was the warm gaze of a man who saw her as an equal, who cherished her strength as much as her beauty. Each step down the aisle felt like a victory. Their guests smiled warmly. Friends they'd made together, colleagues who'd supported their mission to transform the company, survivors from the women's shelter who'd become like family. Even Ryan's board members were there, won over by their shared vision of ethical business practices. When she reached the altar, her father kissed her cheek and placed her hand in Ryan's. His touch was gentle but sure, exactly like the man himself. Their eyes met, and the rest of the world seemed to fade away. The minister began the ceremony, but Mia found herself lost in memories. That first car ride, when she'd been too terrified to speak. The nights at his estate, when she'd slowly begun to trust again. Their first kiss, tentative and sweet, in the garden. The day she'd finally forgiven him for his father's sins, realizing that love was stronger than the past. Ryan. His voice brought her back to the present, clear and steady as he recited his vows. Take you, Mia, to be my wife. I promise to stand beside you as your equal, to support your dreams as you've supported mine, to face whatever challenges come our way together. Tears blurred her vision as she began her own vows. I, Mia, take you, Ryan, to be my husband. I promise to trust in our love, to build our future together, and to never forget that true strength lies in supporting each other. As they exchanged rings, Mia felt the weight of her journey. She wasn't that broken woman anymore, running from a nightmare. She was a woman who'd rebuilt herself, who'd found love on her own terms, who now helped others find their path to freedom. The gold band slipped onto her finger, cool and perfect. Ryan's hands held hers, strong and steady, as the minister pronounced them husband and wife. The vintage Rolls-Royce purred to life as Ryan helped Mia into the passenger seat, her wedding dress carefully arranged around her. Rice and flower petals still clung to their clothes, remnants of their joyful exit from the chapel. Through the rear window, their families and friends waved goodbye, their faces bright with happiness. "Ready for our next adventure, Mrs. Bennet?" Ryan asked, his voice warm with affection as he slid behind the wheel. Mia's heart fluttered at her new name. "More than ready, Mr. Bennet," she replied, reaching for his hand. As they pulled away from the chapel, Mia kicked off her heels and let out a contented sigh. The tension of the wedding preparations melted away, leaving only peace and anticipation. She watched the familiar streets of the city roll by, remembering how different everything had looked that night she'd fled her ex-fiancé. "What are you thinking about?" Ryan asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "Just how far we've come," she said, squeezing his hand. "That night you found me on the road, I was so scared. I couldn't imagine ever feeling safe again, let alone this happy." Ryan brought her hand to his lips, kissing it gently. "I remember thinking you were the bravest person I'd ever met, even then. You still are." The city gave way to rolling countryside, their route taking them toward the coast where a private villa awaited them. The late afternoon sun painted everything in warm golden light, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of summer through the open windows. Mia reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. "I have something for you," she said, handing it to Ryan when they stopped at a traffic light. Inside was a photograph taken at the women's shelter they'd helped establish. Dozens of smiling faces looked back at them, women and children who'd found safety and new beginnings, just as Mia had. "Our first group of graduates," she explained proudly. "They've all completed their education programs or job training. Some have even started their own businesses." Ryan's eyes softened as he studied the photo. "You did that, Mia. You turned your pain into purpose." "We did it together," she corrected him, "just like everything else." They drove on, sharing memories and dreams. Mia told him about the expansion plans for the shelter's programs, while Ryan discussed his ideas for continuing to transform his company's culture. Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and comfortable silences. As they crossed a bridge, Mia spotted a familiar landmark in the distance, the diner where she'd first discovered Ryan's company's connection to her ex-fiancé. But now, instead of feeling fear or anger, she felt only gratitude for how far they'd come. "Remember that diner?" she asked, pointing it out. "How could I forget? I thought I was going to lose you that day," Ryan admitted. "But it forced us to face the truth and fight for what was right." Mia leaned over and kissed his cheek. "I'm glad we did. Look at everything we've built since then." The road curved along the coastline now, offering stunning views of the ocean. Sunlight danced on the waves, and seabirds wheeled overhead. The sight reminded Mia of something her therapist had once told her, that healing wasn't about erasing the past, but about building a future strong enough to carry it. Ryan turned onto a scenic overlook, parking so they could watch the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon. The sky was painted in brilliant shades of pink and gold, reflecting off the water below. "I love you," Mia said simply, looking at her husband with eyes full of warmth and gratitude. "I love you too," Ryan replied, his smile reaching his eyes. He started the car again, and they continued their journey, the road ahead stretching out before them like a promise. The Rolls-Royce glided smoothly along the coastal highway, carrying them toward their honeymoon destination. As Mia watched Ryan's profile in the golden light, she felt complete peace wash over her. They were no longer running from the past or fighting against it. They were moving forward together, ready to build the life they dreamed of.